Some of y'all are confused about why I say things like slavery is my history, slavery is white history, since most of the people doing the enslaving looked like me, right? And I also talk about white supremacy and white privilege a lot on this channel, right? And sometimes I get asked, like, is that awkward for me? And like, kind of, right? Like, because I know that it was my ancestors who helped to put into place the values that resulted in this most recent election, right? They were creating a world that was so safe and advantageous for themselves and their descendants, me, right? That they happily stripped the rights and resources of the people who were colonized, genocided, who were forced to build, physically forced to build, almost everything we have here. But one really nice thing about doing this work is that once you begin to work in anti-oppression, it kind of takes over your life, right? It extends to everything, to my work, my spiritual life, my partnership, my friendships, my family, and to myself, right? Because there are so many ways you are taught as a white person to oppress yourself in order to fit in with all the other whites so that you can leverage your whiteness, right? And that's because whiteness as a construct, as a concept, only really works if there are shared traits that we can all point to and go, yeah, that's white, right? And it only works if we whites all agree to hold each other to these traits so that we can draw a line between us and them and exclude people of color. But I learned from an early age that I was never really going to fit, right? You know, my parents come from two different countries. English was not my first language. Ihr staunt, aber Deutsch war meine erste Sprache. I'm queer. I'm in this assigned female body, but I'm huge, almost 6 feet tall, and not like model 6 feet tall, like built like my ancestors knew they might not always be able to afford a mule to pull that plow. You know what I mean? And I've definitely got some kind of divergence going on up here, that's for sure. And as a kid, that was tough, right? But it was so good for me. It allowed me to accept all these aspects of myself in a way that I was just not raised to do, in a way that the society around me was not taught to do, right? And in accepting myself with all of these pieces, I reject white supremacy as the basis for my culture, for my American culture, right? Because you have to remember, the thing about fascism, especially white supremacist fascism, the kind that we're all super familiar with, is that it really wants everything to be homogenized. We whites at the top have to look the same, act the same, be the same, right? And I don't look the same, I don't act the same, and I cannot be the same. And I'm really grateful for that, you know, and I hope that every single one of you who is watching also feels that way, because you belong, right? Every color, every race, every nationality, every ethnicity, every status of documentation, every gender and no gender, every orientation, every ability, every size, every shape, every age, every religion, whether or not you've been incarcerated, whether or not you plan to or have children, except fascists.